Oh, look, Marnus is under pressure, there's no doubt about it. I think Test cricket-wise, I would select him, and I said this in the last podcast, I would select him to play the Test Championship in the UK.
Is the pressure deserved, do you think, as well? He's been such a consistent performer for Australia for such a long time, but this kind of feels like the first time he's really been tested with an extended period of less than par form, it has to be said.
I mean, apart from a World Cup, I don't think we need international T20. I think there's enough unbelievable domestic tournaments around the world. Get your T20 fixed domestically and then play, you know, if it's once every 2 years or once every 4 years, a T20 World Cup.
What do you think about the squad that we're taking and the fact that we're playing all of our games in Pakistan to start as well?
I'm not writing Australia off. I think they've got enough talent through that squad. They've got to think about trying to win the game, not protect losing the game. I think there's no doubt about it, they'll miss Bumrah.
Ravi Shastri said that when you lose a Bumrah, you're already at a 30 to 35% deficit at your chance of winning. But when you're so stacked like that and the replacement is Harshit Rana, who's also been exceptional, it's not a bad replacement, is it?
G'day guys, welcome back to Beyond 23. I'm Michael Clark, and alongside me today, it is very special to have the lovely Erin Holland right beside me. One of my great friends, another cricket tragic, definitely a better cricketer than a husband. Only joking, Ben, if you're listening, I do love Ben Cutting. He's a great man. He was a wonderful player, and I was lucky enough to play alongside him for Australia as well. But you do love your cricket. You travel the world, commentating, watching, supporting. I see you when you're in Pakistan and India, you're watching the game live at the event, and then you got your iPad or your phone, you're watching Ben play somewhere else. So nice to have you, and thank you for coming on Beyond 23.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. As you said, massive cricket nuffy since I was a tiny tot. I could recite to you the 12th man word for word. That was every road trip growing up. And
rightly
then
so.
Obviously married a cricketer now, but the love has got absolutely nothing to do with you, Ben. In fact, I think I love it a little less after the stress of watching you play over the last 10 years.
Yeah,
but
we could talk all day about that, being a cricketer's wife as well. I can only
imagine.
I reckon playing's a lot easier than watching. So I don't know how you've done that for such a long period of time. But
therapy is needed.
The one thing about Beyond 23, we are very open and we love our guest feedback. Now, generally, I get sledged on this show. So I know we get messages all the time. And again, I really appreciate your support. Everyone that subscribes and follows us on social media, we really do appreciate it. So thank you, and keep the messages coming, and I'll keep copying the abuse. But I guess one of the... you
got off scot-free this week by the looks of it then. I'm disappointed.
We've got a few questions that have been asked, and they actually are pretty good cricket questions. So I'm not disappointed. Whoever put these gave me this sheet, I'm happy with. I'm pretty sure there's a lot more out there that that I'm being sledged. But
well, if you've gone through to the keeper then.
What are the things you wanted to ask me, Erin, that you've picked up that you've seen?
Well, obviously the Champions Trophy is starting imminently, so plenty of questions in about that.
Yeah.
Tarak7036 sent in, why didn't they select Sam Konstas for the Champions Trophy? And he didn't help the cause of conjecture, I suppose, when he scores 116 of 98 against Queensland yesterday. But thoughts on the Wunderkind?
Yeah, look, he's a super talent. I think yesterday was his first domestic 100 for New South Wales. So I think that's probably the main thing. I think everyone can see how talented he is. It's just about now turning that into consistent performance. I think he's one of those players that can play all three formats. I think it's just a matter of time. But it looks like Australia have been pretty disciplined on the batting strength they've wanted and the structure they want to go with. Obviously had a lot of injuries, a lot of guys pulling out, certainly the fast bowlers, and then obviously Marcus Stoinis announcing his retirement from one-day cricket. But I think batting-wise, it looks like they're pretty set on a certain structure, which is going to be interesting because I don't know if I agree with the structure for the conditions they're playing in. I think if this IC Champions Trophy was in Australia, I think I understand their structure, but we'll get to that a little bit later. But playing in Pakistan and in Dubai, it's a lot different playing short-form cricket over there to in Australia. So I think it's just a matter of time for Sam. There's no doubt about it.
Is there an element of not wanting to give him too much to deal with too soon as well? He's already got a test debut. He's got a baggy green. The media furore that came around that as well, whether it's getting shouldered by Virat Kohli or all of that. Is it not too much too soon? You don't want to overload. He's only 19 years old.
I don't know if you can babysit someone into playing sport at the highest level. I think if you're good enough, you're good enough. I think the facts are at the moment he's probably not in the starting 15 for Australia, so they haven't selected him.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. Which brings us to question 2, actually, on the selection topic. At Sid Midnight Skies, thanks very much for this question, mate. But Marnus out, please, with 3 exclamation marks is all it says. He's under a lot of pressure, not only in the test arena, but now turning our attention to the Champions Trophy. Is he in your playing 11? We know he's in the squad.
Oh, look, Marnus is under pressure, there's no doubt about it. I think test cricket-wise, I would select him, and I said this in the last podcast, I would select him to play the Test Championship in the UK. Conditions he knows very well. I haven't got him in my starting 11 in this Champions Trophy. I think having him in the squad, I can understand that. But no, I wouldn't have him in my starting 11. I think him and Steve Smith are very similar. In one-day cricket, they play a very similar role. And I think in the Australian 11, I would be looking to pick one of those to be in my top 6 batting unit, not 2 of them.
Is the pressure deserved, do you think, as well? He's been such a consistent performer for Australia for such a long time, but this kind of feels like the first time he's really been tested with an extended period of less than par form, it has to be said. I mean, 15 off 27 just recently in the loss to Sri Lanka, which a bit of a shock to the system probably for the Aussies after such a dominant test win.
It was a great win by Sri Lanka. Aussies were horrible. They were terrible with the bat, chasing, a total they probably should have got comfortably. I know conditions spun and the wicket was quite slow, but after the way they played in the test matches, I think they'll be disappointed with that. Look, Marnus's form hasn't been great, but I think you've got to separate test cricket from one-day cricket. I'm looking at him as a one-day player, and I can understand why he's in the squad, like I say, to be a part of this Champions Trophy squad, but I wouldn't be selecting him in my starting 11 if Steve Smith is fully fit, which at the moment he is, and he's flying.
I think you'd have to amputate his elbow for him to not want to play a part in the Champions Trophy. So our last question is from at GTS8919. That came through YouTube as well. So thanks to all of our YouTube subscribers. But they want to know what makes the Champions Trophy special despite there being so many other big trophies on offer, like the World Test Championship, ODI World Cup, T20 World Cup. Why Champions Trophy?
Well, from my perspective, when I played, the Champions Trophy was exactly that, a mini World Cup. So they were the 2 major one-day tournaments, and that was before T20 started. So I, as a player, loved being involved in the Champions Trophy. I think, and we've spoken about this before, I think the reason behind the Champions Trophy starting was to give the countries that don't get to play against the top-ranked countries more opportunity, to compete against the best. There's obviously prize money when the ICC is involved as well, so it was to help them with that. And look, I think the question around the Champions Trophy is there enough room in the schedule for another ICC event
packed.
Because
There's
it's very tight.
Going on.
But look, I like the format. I've heard players come out and say it's a harder format than the one-day World Cup because you're playing against the top 8 ranked one-day teams in the world, which means you have to turn up ready to go. There's no time to roll into a tournament like a World Cup. You've got a couple of games leading in that you probably don't need to be at your best. I think this Champions Trophy is a lot different. I think teams have been playing all around the world. I think the advantage, I think there's an advantage straight away to New Zealand, South Africa and Pakistan are all playing in those conditions at the moment with this tri-series. So I think that'll really help them. Australia obviously playing Sri Lanka in spinning conditions, but I think those conditions that I saw in the first ODI are very different to what I've seen in Pakistan and Dubai. There's a lot of talk around, majority of the tournament being in Pakistan. India are going to play in Dubai. Very different conditions as well. So does that favour India that they don't have to travel around Pakistan? They know the pitch they're going to play on. How much of an advantage is that as well?
And you're picking a squad for one venue, not picking a squad for 4 venues, essentially. If you are one of the sides in that pool, that does have to chuff over to Dubai and play. So you've got 3 vastly different conditions to play in Pakistan with Karachi, Pindi and Lahore.
Yep.
And then you've got to go to Dubai, which by all intents and purposes, looking at what happened to ILT, will probably spin a lot more than the decks that we see, which kind of aid the quicks in Pakistan in recent times anyway.
Yeah.
But
Well, I think no travel in general helps. Like you think about playing in Australia, you'd love to play every game at the one venue. So even traveling around Australia, flying from Pakistan to Dubai it's a 2-hour flight, so it's not that hard, but it's still, getting on an aeroplane, no different to the teams that have to fly to the different venues in Pakistan. So India will have a slight advantage in staying in the one venue. There's no doubt about it. But look, when I look through the 8 teams, I think it's an extremely strong tournament. I think we're going to see high runs scored. I think the bowlers are going to have to use a lot of variations. And the selection of 11s, I think, is so important. But to GTS 8919, from a player's point of view, I love the Champions Trophy. My memory's not great. So earlier we spoke about, I think 2006, I played in the team that won it.
you did. You won it in 2006.
I didn't bat in the final. I didn't bowl. I was a specialist fielder.
How's your
but I
Gatorade
know we
mixing
won
skills?
It. I know I was good at mixing Gatorade. But yeah, it was a tournament that I definitely look forward to being a part of. And it was, like I say, it was a mini World Cup. So you wanted to be in that 15-man squad.
And you'd be forgiven for maybe not knowing a lot about Champions Trophy. We haven't had one since 2017.
Yeah.
It is something that did start all the way back in the 90s, as you said. First one in Bangladesh. Then it went to Kenya to try and give non-test playing nations an opportunity to rub shoulders and to earn some money to really build cricket back in their own countries. But since then, had a variety of different winners. Not a competition Australia generally dominates. Yes, you won it in 2006. We also won it in 2009, 10.
Yeah.
But it's not one where we go, Aussies are a shoo-in, which I think is a good challenge for the Australians as well. But if we're going to rank these amongst the other huge ICC comps in the world, so you've got your ODI World Cups, your World Test Championships, your T20 World Cups. Now the Champions Trophy has sprung back up as well.
It's a lot of cricket.
It is a lot of cricket, and
I don't think it'll sit. It does. It certainly. I think these days the One-Day World Cup and the T20 World Cup are the two pinnacles of the short form, and then I would imagine the Champions Trophy would sit below those two. But yeah, T20 has obviously taken off all around the world. My opinion on T20 is I don't think, apart from a World Cup, I don't think we need international T20. I think there's enough unbelievable domestic tournaments around the world. Get your T20 fixed domestically and then play, if it's once every 2 years or once every 4 years, a T20 World Cup. That's how I probably see T20 cricket. And I think the One-Day World Cup is still a very, very special event. So as a player, that would still be on the bucket list for me, even in the current system where you got Test cricket, One-Day cricket and T20 cricket.
I mean, it's a whole podcast within itself, but talking about where ODI sits in terms of a format of cricket as well.
Yep.
I don't want to see it fall by the wayside.
No
I
way.
grew up watching
Yeah.
the iconic Australian ODI team, which you were a part of for so many years as well, and watching their dominance. And there's so much to love about the 50-over format and what a challenge it presents as well, particularly trying to switch between the formats as a player. It's a really good test of temperament, of how to pace an innings as well. And I think we're probably going to see scores in excess of well over 300 now if we're seeing 200 scored very easily and 20 over a side. But, how much of a mind shift is it going between the formats in your perspective? You obviously played all three.
I think one-day cricket's changed a lot now. I think one-day cricket was closer to Test cricket when I played. So if you batted in the top 4 or 5 in Test cricket, the way we played as an Australian batting unit, you didn't have to change too much in one-day cricket. Like you'd look to be a little bit more aggressive at the start of your innings, but a lot of similarities because 50 overs was a long time. I think one-day cricket now is probably closer to T20 cricket than Test cricket. So it's probably seen from a player's perspective like two 2020s. I think the power play at the start is crucial for teams these days to get off to an absolute flyer, and you're willing to lose a couple of wickets to do that. And then your wickets in hand, death batting is crucial. You're seeing teams make 150 off the last 10 overs and do it comfortably. So you probably never feel safe as a bowling unit when a team's, if they got wickets in hand at the end, you can virtually chase down anything. So I think the style of one-day cricket has changed, and I think we'll see it throughout this Champions Trophy. That's why I'm interested in the squads.
Yeah.
The squads that everyone's picked, And I'd love to go through, each team just a little bit to have a look at, I guess, at their strengths and their weaknesses. And I think the way they are going to play in these conditions, that's one of the other things. Looking at the 8 teams that are involved, if this tournament was being played in Australia, I think I'd have them ranked very differently to how I have them ranked being in Pakistan and Dubai. So, you've seen as much of Pakistan cricket as anyone. How do you see them going, and how do you see them handling the pressure? Because there is a lot of pressure playing in their own backyard.
Look, they live and breathe cricket. It is their number one sport by a
Is that
country
why you're
mile.
wearing green as well? Are you supporting
Aussie
Pakistan?
green and gold.
Just checking. Just checking.
Well, I want to talk about kits in a second as well, because that's one of my favourite things is the ODI kits across the years. But having worked in Pakistan for the last 6 years hosting the PSL, I know how much cricket is a life force. It's the sport you see every corner you turn in, very similar to India as well. It means so much to them. The nation lives and dies by the sword when their national side plays. And I was actually hosting their coverage of the World Cup in Pakistan, along the likes of Shoaib Akhtar, Yunus Khan, who's won World Cups himself, Mohammad Hafiz. To hear how upset they were when Pakistan didn't live up to expectations. And I think the frustrating thing for a fan of Pakistan cricket is they have so much talent. They have so much potential. On their day, they can beat absolutely anybody. And they're such a wild card. But I'm hoping, for their sake as well, that they can find a way to deal with the pressure of the nation, the pressure of being at home in front of their home crowd as well. Hopefully that lifts them as that special 12th man, the crowd, and doesn't overcome them. And we also know that there's been so much movement within the side, within the management. I think there's often been a feeling of uneasiness of not knowing which way selections are going. Am I in the team again? Who's even my chairman? They've had a lot of difficulty in that area, but it feels like things have settled. The dust has settled. The side seems to be putting some good performances on the board. They just had their largest ever ODI run chase in well excess of 350 against South Africa the other night in that tri-series. So I want to see, personally, India v Pakistan in the final. And I feel terrible for saying that as an Australian, but just something about that, getting to see that would be absolutely sensational.
I think that's the other thing that, for people that don't understand, this is the only time India can play Pakistan. So if it's not an ICC event, they don't get the opportunity to play against each other. They haven't played Test cricket against each other for such a long period of time. And that's the other thing that makes tournaments like these so special. That rivalry is, we talk about Australia versus England or Australia versus India, but this rivalry between Pakistan and India is unbelievable. So we know they come up against each other in the tournament. Could you imagine?
I want to see it twice.
If they played each other in the final. Look, I think Pakistan's in my top 4.
Okay.
I think home ground advantage makes a significant difference. I think they've got a balanced squad. And to me, if they play their best cricket, they're good enough to win the tournament. My fear with Pakistan is, can they handle the pressure? It's been my fear or my concern with them when I played against them. That was the one thing that we always spoke about as a team. Stay in the game for long enough. We are great with pressure. Can the opposition handle it? And I've seen on a number of occasions they've had the better team, but they haven't been able to handle the pressure. So that's going to be interesting.
I think you talk about power plays being incredibly important in this format of the game. I think for Pakistan and their mental state, the power play is incredibly important, because if they get off to a great start, it's like the energy and the confidence just rises and they go like the wind. Yep. Kind of similar to Afghanistan. So let's run through these squads quickly as well, because we've got all of our 8 teams in contention here to run through. And I want to get your thoughts on where they'll finish. So I won't get you to rate them just yet, because I know it's very difficult. We haven't seen anyone in action. But if you can give me maybe an out of 8 where you think that they will finish.
I think, again, it depends. They have to be able to handle pressure. I think spinner's always been a huge strength of Afghanistan's. T20 cricket, I think they are the silent assassin. I think they are the team that a lot of people don't talk about in 2020 cricket, but they've got a number of superstars that play 2020 cricket all around the world. Being a one-dayer, so the likes of someone like Rashid Khan, who I think is an absolute superstar, in a one-day game with 10 overs to bowl, my brain straight away thinks, I don't need to take him for 60, 70 or 80. I need to give him hopefully no more than 1 or 2 wickets, and take him for 40 or 50. So I can play him a little bit like Test cricket.
You can see him off rather than have to
2020
take
cricket,
him
you
on.
can't do that. So that's the slight disadvantage to Afghanistan, that their best players, I think the likes of India, Pakistan, Australia, these teams can just see off or get that one good wicket. And I don't know if their full 11 is strong enough to make the top 4. So I've probably got Afghanistan finishing 7th.
Okay. I probably have them a little bit higher just because of the fact that so many of these players do play in Pakistan a lot. They're very familiar with the conditions.
Yep.
Obviously, being an Afghanistan player, they don't get the opportunity to play at home. So they've really blooded themselves in a lot of these franchise leagues around the world.
Yep.
ODI cricket, though, is a completely different beast, as you said. But how good was it when they got their first ever win
Love seeing them do well
in the World Cup in 23?
And they're beautiful people as well. Like I've been lucky enough again through, playing but also commentating to speak to a number of their players. They're great people. You want to see them do well. Yeah. So I hope they prove me wrong. I hope they find a way to squeeze into that top 4, because it'd be great for cricket in Afghanistan. And like I say, they got great people.
And Azmatullah Omrazai, ICC Player of the Year as well. Like what a kudos to the Afghanistani player there. But let's spend some time on Australia.
The Aussies.
A lot of chat. They're the walking wounded in a way. We've had that many injuries. Not even sure who's playing. But what do you think about the squad that we're taking and the fact that we're playing all of our games in Pakistan to start as well?
We've lost, 5 players in the last 6 months.
Yep, the 3 nasty fasties, Cummins, Hazelwood, Stark, Mitch Marsh.
And
Stoinis
Marcus
gets selected and then retires.
So even if you just think about the 3 fast bowlers, not just forget how well they bowl, their experience in the starting 11. Those 3 are in the starting 11 if they're fully fit and they're there. So that is a huge hole for the Australian team. I'm not silly enough to write this squad off. I think Australia can still make the top 4. They have to be at their absolute best. They need to play spin bowling well. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to see some of these young quicks. We saw a number of young batters come in through the Australian summer in Test cricket. I've been saying for a little while, these 3 fast bowlers, Cummins, Hazelwood and Stark, have done such an amazing job and are superstars of the game. And I hope they play Test cricket for as long as they want until they walk away. But I think in the shortest 2 formats for Australia, it might be changing in the guard time. I think this is a good opportunity for these young quicks to really step up and own their spot. And then I think you can select, these big 3. They can play. They're going to still play in the IPL and things like that. They're still going to play Test cricket. But then even if they only play World Cups, or they can pick and choose a little bit more, I think this might be a blessing in disguise for some of these young Aussie quicks to really stamp their authority and show the Australian selectors that they are ready to be in the starting 11. So I'm not writing Australia off. I think they've got enough talent through that squad. My only thing I'd say is I think they've got to think about trying to win the game, not protect losing the game. And what I mean by that is the likes of a Marnus and a Steve Smith, very similar players, playing in Australia, they're both in my starting 11. Playing in somewhere like Pakistan where their wickets are beautiful to bat on, you got to make higher scores, I'd be picking one. And at the moment, Steve Smith's in terrific form and he's the captain, so it's going to be Smitty. Whether he bats 3 or bats 4 is up to him, whatever he thinks is best for the team. But I wouldn't have both Smith and Marnus at 3 and 4 in my one-day team in these conditions that they're going to. So that opens the door to someone like a Josh Inglis.
Well, does he come in at 3 then instead of Marnus?
Look, he's in form. They picked him in the Test match. He got 100 on debut. This guy is a talented player. No Mitchell Marsh at the top of the order now. I think it might be the right time for him to come in and just back himself. He's got all the shots. He's aggressive. Plays the ramps, the reverse. He's got every shot. Plays spin well. I think I'm more comfortable certainly starting with him at 3, and then you could bat someone like Steve Smith at 4 in our starting 11.
Yeah, that does look like a very strong playing 11 when you do look at it. We're not even sure of which way they're going to go because there are so many options. Do you play that second spinner and Tanvir Sangha as well? He's been incredible since he came back off injury at the very back end of the BBL, doing well in domestic cricket.
Well, you got Maxwell's part-time spinners as well if he's in the starting 11. You got Travis Head's part-time spinners if he's in the 11. And Adam Zamper's bowled like a genius. So even if you went in with that, then you quicks and all rounders. Like I think we've got enough talent there. It's just, again, how do you handle losing 5 big players? All 5 of the guys that are being ruled out were, been a part of the one-day setup for such a long period of time. So,
in terms of the way that you mentally blood your players as well, because let's not forget, cricket is such an intensely mental sport as well as a physical sport. How good is this Champions Trophy as an opportunity for some of these younger, up-and-coming, potentially full-time Australian players to get the opportunity of playing for Australia in this kind of a pressured format?
Well, they've all seen Australian cricket. They've all been a part of the setup. They've dominated domestic cricket, so now they get their crack. Sometimes it doesn't matter how you get your opportunity. When you get it, you got to grab it with both hands. So I think there's a number of players in that Australian squad that will be looking forward to this opportunity, not scared of the opportunity.
Where do they finish?
Top 4.
There you go.
I can't give you my 1, 2, 3, 4, but I can give you my top 4.
Oh, you never played by the rules anyway, did you? I love it. I have to agree with that there. Bangladesh.
Oh, I'm nervous. I'm nervous about Bangladesh. I guess on their side is conditions. They know these conditions so well. Very similar to what they get at home. Big tournament. They did well to qualify, to be honest. I'm really happy that they qualified. But
no Shakib Al Hassan as well. There's your experience.
I know.
Mahmudullah's last comp, they're saying potentially as well.
I have them finishing 8th, just behind Afghanistan. Again, I hope they prove me wrong, but I think they're going to find they're going to be up against it. And again, there's no time to warm up. There's no time to slowly get into this tournament. You've got to be at your best straight away. So, I think they're going to find it difficult, Bangladesh. Yeah.
Someone who also might find it difficult considering recent form, England. Our arch rivals. Wow. They've not been having a good time of it in India. It has to be said.
You know what? It's a really tough one because when I look at the squad, they've got a number of superstars. And you see it in T20 cricket when they play all around the world. Joss Butler, I think, is a pretty good leader as well. They've got Jofra Archer back in the squad, who's a huge strike weapon, wicket taker up front, great at the death, has been, the best bowler in the world at a certain stage, certainly in one day in T20 cricket. Their performance in India was dreadful. And then I guess the thing that shocked me the most is when I've read they didn't train or didn't maximise their time in Indian conditions preparation-wise. That's strange, and that tells me more about attitude than talent. And I think in a big tournament like this, if you are not confident, if you are not playing your best cricket, and if you are not training to get better every day, when you get those days off, you're in a lot of trouble. So going on recent form, I think I'm being kind to them, putting them in 6th place.
Yeah.
But I think I was really disappointed with how they played in India. They're a much better team than that, and they need to turn things around ASAP, but I don't think they will in this tournament. So I've got England coming 6th.
Yeah, they'll be certainly wanting to try and turn the tide of those performances in India. A number of comments as well from people in the English press impressing upon the fact that they're not playing a lot of domestic cricket as well. Whereas when we turn our attention to the India squad, one of the things that they do so well is that focus on domestic cricket. The likes of Jadeja has been absolutely killing it in domestic cricket, getting himself ready for this format of the game. It is a challenge. It is a difference. But India, they look like a very, very strong side. Just looking at their squad there, I don't even know who's going to play. Like, there's so many different permutations of this playing 11.
Oh, yeah, I can't work out their best 11 yet. I think there's no doubt about it. They'll miss Bumrah. I think he is a huge loss. He's the best bowler in the world in all 3 formats, in my opinion. Brilliant new ball, brilliant death, wicket taker. Any team that has Bumrah, you're a different team without him, so they'll miss him. But you look through that squad, it is so strong. I think India are the favourites, even without Bumrah. I still think they're the favourites to win the Champions Trophy. I've got them in my top 4. Shubman Gill's been in good form. Rohit Sharma, 100 a couple of games ago, so he's back in form. The one for me that I think they missed through the Australian summer, who is a part of their shorter formats, is Hardik Pandya. I think he's a superstar. I think he's an X factor, and I think he will have a huge tournament. So I'm saying India are the favourites, and they're in my top 4.
Yeah, Ravi Shastri said that when you lose a Bumrah, you're already at a 30 to 35% deficit at your chance of winning. But when you're so stacked like that and the replacement is Harshit Rana, who's also been exceptional. It's not a bad replacement, is it? Varun Chakravarti, he could be very difficult to contend with in Dubai as well. We know that the wickets do spin there. So, I mean, look, Rishabh Pant, Jadeja, Mohammad Shami as well, to get to see him back after missing him this
They missed him
summer.
in the test format. It's a strong squad. So working out what their best 11 is going to be difficult for them, but what a good problem to have.
So they're top 4 for you as well, no doubt.
Yep, India's top 4 for me, definitely.
All right, our Kiwi friends, they haven't been performing too well in ICC comps of recent time, but they're in Pakistan. They're playing a tri-series at the moment. They find themselves in the final of that against Pakistan tonight.
Well, I think that helps them a lot. I think them being over there playing in these conditions makes a significant difference in preparation, like I say, because there's not time to work into this tournament. Again, a lot of talent.
New captain, Minchell Satner as well. He's played a lot of PSL.
He's played a lot of 2020 cricket all around the world. I think the other thing as well, you look through their squad, he's still got a lot of experience around him if he needs it in regards to leadership. A lot of power looking through their squad, certainly on the batting front. I think New Zealand just squeeze into my top 4. I don't know if they can win the Champions Trophy. Again, I think they always overachieve, New Zealand. So another team would be silly to write off. So I think I'm going to put them just into my top 4.
Awesome. All right, moving on to the home side, Pakistan. Their squad.
Yeah, well, I think we spoke about them earlier. They're, again, home ground advantage when they're playing in Pakistan. Know the conditions so well. Playing cricket at the moment in those conditions, in the final, like you mentioned, against New Zealand. They're definitely in my top 4. So India, Pakistan, Australia, and New Zealand, they're the teams I've got in my top 4. And like I say, I think Pakistan, my only question is, can they handle the pressure of playing a major tournament in their own backyard? Expectation is hard to deal with.
An expectation for our last side as well, South Africa. I mean, it's gone begging that many times. We always come back to talking about the fact they get the yips when it comes to silverware being on the line. What do they have to do to try and get the job done? They've got a strong-looking side, as they always do. A lot of these guys do play in Pakistan, so they know these conditions, but what is it about having a monkey on the back, so to speak, when you come into these comps?
I don't know. It didn't happen to Australia. I don't know. Was that a stab? Look, this is the only team I don't know what to expect. I'm sitting on the fence with South Africa. I feel like when they're at their best, they could make the final of this competition. When they're at their worst, they could finish last. I really don't know what to expect. I've seen mixed cricket and like such a huge degree in the gap over the past 12 months in all formats. I think they've really focused on short form cricket. They've made decisions around their home T20 tournament is their priority. So they've got a white ball focus. A lot of talent. Again, a lot of players that play overseas, play spin bowling well, but they just haven't got the results that they probably would have liked or expected over the past few years. And major tournaments, there's no doubt, it must play on your mind. The fact that you get so close and can't get over the line, I don't know how you don't think about it. I probably think you're better off talking about it, embracing it, laughing at it and enjoying it. I've got them 5th in this tournament. They're in my bottom 4 or my bottom half. But I was unsure. Them and New Zealand were fighting for that 4 and 5 spot. And like I say, this South African team, I really don't know what to expect. I think it could change every game. I think you could see them come and beat the likes of India, and then you could see them lose to Afghanistan. But I think that's the tournament we got as well. I think it's going to be
the beauty of it too, isn't it?
Super tight.
The fact that we can sit there, we can go through all of these playing 11s, postulate who's actually going to play, and to not really know out and out where people are going to finish makes it for a really exciting tournament. And I tell you what, before we end, I'm really excited to see what kits people bring out. I think the ODI kits are some of my favourite in cricket. What was your favourite? You'd have a few knocking around in the walk-in wardrobe.
Aussie Gold's tough to beat. I used to love...
Not the canary yellow.
Not the canary yellow. It was Aussie Gold. We used to have... I think we were home, we were green at one stage. Away, we were gold. So Look, I remember the World Cups generally and the ICC events. You generally get the best uniforms because it's made for that one-off tournament, and there's certainly special ones that you hang on to when you do retire. So, yeah, I think I don't mind the change as long as the colours, like Australia is green and gold. I think I like to see our uniforms stay traditional in colour.
I don't like when they bring in blue.
Oh, we
and all
tried
sorts of...
black. I remember we had a 2020 uniform that was black. So, I think as long as we stay traditional on colour, I look forward to seeing what the new kits look like.
Look good, feel good, play good.
That's it. That's what we want. That's
Love
what we
it.
want. But yeah, look, again, I think we've expressed how close this tournament's going to be. I think that's the one thing you look forward to when you're playing Champions Trophy like this. You got the best 8 teams, guys fighting for that win, that prize money, I remember, I don't know if they still do it now. I remember we got presented with the white jackets.
Yes.
So you get your Champions trophy on stage, and then we got this like a white blazer. Don't know where mine is now, but it'd be somewhere in the wardrobe. But it's those type of things that, winning major events is what your reputation as a team is built on. You can go through rankings and who's ranked 1 or who's ranked 8th. I don't think it matters too much. I think winning major tournaments is what your legacy is about. And I think that's one of the things that Australia has been so strong on. A lot of people talk about our World Cup success.
We want to keep the rivalries alive as well between the different countries. We play a lot of franchise cricket now. We rub shoulders and we're buddy-buddy with players from all around the world, which makes it difficult to kind of front up, but I think can get the aggro and the competition and the competitive juices flowing. But that's exactly what these comps do. And I'm really excited to see the Champions Trophy back. It's my first look at one that I'll be following really, really closely, which I'm really excited for. But I think we're in for a wild ride.
Can't wait.
It's going to be fun.
You can be friends off the field, but you're representing your country on the field. So go hard.
Right. Well, before we go, and I let Pup go on to his day, time for some quick predictions as well. Starting off, 2 teams in the final. Who are they going to be?
My fingers are crossed for Australia. So I'm going to say Australia's going to be one of them. And I think they're going to play India in the final.
Always bleeds green and gold. So a repeat of the World Cup in 2023 in India.
That's what I'm hoping for.
There we go. Our tournament winner overall. Who takes the white jacket?
If there's a washout, is there like an extra day?
You can't share a white jacket.
You know what? I think India's going to beat Australia in the final. Can't believe that just came out of my mouth. I think India's going to win the tournament.
Well, if India are in the final, it's in Dubai. They would have played there the entire time as well, so they'll be familiar with conditions. Could be onto something there.
I'm going with them.
Unfortunately. Okay, this one's a bit more tricky. A lot of wonderful batters will be knocking around in the Champions Trophy, but who do you think will get the most runs in the tournament?
Well, I'm saying India's going to win. I'm going to go with their captain, who's back in form. I'm going to say Rohit Sharma, leading run scorer in the tournament.
There you go. Wouldn't it be great to see him back in some wonderful form?
It's good to see him making runs again.
It absolutely is.
I think India need him, for sure.
All right, who takes the most poles, most wickets?
Wow. Well, when we did the PSL last year, it didn't spin that much in India. The wickets were slow. I'm going to go fast bowler. I'm going to go Jofra Archer, leading wicket taker. And I know England I'm not expecting them to do that well, but I think he's a superstar. I think Jofra's going to be really hard to play. So I'm going to have him as my leading wicket taker. Yeah,
we know how potent he can be, and considering fast bowling's always been Pakistan's strength. You'd have to think that they'd be producing wickets that'll be conducive to that.
To the quick, I hope so. I hope so.
Player of the tournament.
So if it's India, Australia, fine. I'm going to go Travis Head. Travis Head's been in terrific form. His IPL form was phenomenal. Australian summer test form, phenomenal. He's had a bit of a break in Sri Lanka. He's ready to go again. I'm going to say Travis Head, player of the tournament, even though I think Australia might lose the final.
Recent AB medalist as well. He's been fantastic. It feels like he's got so many gears to his game as well.
He's full of confidence.
And with the ball?
That's what you want. And I think his bowling's underrated. I think he can bowl a lot more. So let's see. Steve Smith's a different captain to Pat Cummins. Let's see if Smitty uses him. Let's see what conditions produce. And, Yeah, you could pick up some handy wickets, that's for sure. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed Beyond 23. Thank you for joining us. We'll be here. We'll be back all throughout this ICC Champions Trophy, following all 8 teams, silently going for the Aussies, but may the best team win. Thank you for joining us.